Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. To get up to a $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit, go to thegruelingtruth.com. Click on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page. I am your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my other co-host, member of the 1981 national champion Indiana Hoosiers, and a member of the Indiana High School Basketball Hall of Fame. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Mike, how you doing today? Did you have a good Easter?
Yeah, I had a great Easter. How about you?
Just watched golf, and we don't have any kids, so we didn't really get into the egg thing.
Well, that's going to become as news to Ross that you don't have any kids.
Yeah. So we hid some dog bones around the house, and let the dogs kind of put them out where they could go find them. So the dogs kind of had a dog bone hunt.
All right. Our guest today has been on the Grueling Truth multiple times. He's one of my favorite guests. Help me welcome to the show former Cincinnati Bengal and Atlanta Falcon, Gary Burley. How you doing, Gary?
I'm well, guys. How about yourselves?
Oh, we're great. And it's Monday, which the great thing about this is we don't actually hate to do our job, so Monday's no big deal to us. Actually, Friday's kind of sad, though.
Well, I tell you what, enjoy every day that you have, man. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and we've had you on before, and I think we had you on like last December or so. I know I talked to you then, and you had a guy who's been on our show now a couple times, Jackie Sherrill, who was doing a video for you because you needed a kidney transplant. Do you want to kind of go through basically when you found out that you had a problem, and then kind of your life since then, how you found a transplant, and just basically let us know your story?
Well, I hope you got a little time because it goes back a few years. I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. That's a form of blood cancer. And I did chemo for a year. And with my history of high blood pressure and the chemo, it damaged my kidneys. And I went on for a couple of years, and then I found out my kidneys were functioning at less than 30%. So immediately I was prescribed to do dialysis. So I did dialysis for 3 years, and no big deal. You know, you go in, you get your blood clean, you come out, you go home and go to bed. So that was my routine 3 days a week, 4 hours a day. Well, in the third year, my wife comes up to me and she says, "You're going to get a kidney for Christmas." And I said, well, I put it in God's hands. I prayed all I can, and I focused on taking care of myself until that happened. So I'm not going to worry about it until it does. Well, Christmas came and went, and I still didn't have a kidney. And one day, I decided to take my transplant coordinator to dinner. So my wife and I took Dodgy to dinner, and we're sitting there talking, and she asked me, how was I feeling, the whole 9 yards. And I wasn't the greatest host that night because I had to get up and do dialysis the next morning. But anyway, make a long story short, our friends start coming into the restaurant that we were at, Perry's Restaurant here in Birmingham. And I thought, that's kind of odd that we got 3 sets of friends coming in the same restaurant at the same time that we are. So anyway, one of the friends came over and sat down with us, and we started talking, and she hands me this booklet. And it's a picture of all the events that we went to, pictures of us, and we sat there and we talked, and then I didn't read the last page of the booklet. And so anyway, she said, well, did you read the last page? I said, no, I didn't. So she read it for me. She said, I am oh so positive that I'm a match for you. And I said, oh, that's nice, and I didn't pay any attention of it because I was focused on something else. So then Dodgy, my transplant coordinator, leans over and asks me, what am I doing on Friday? And I said, Dodgy, I'm going to dialysis and going home and go to bed like I've been doing for the last 3 years. So she goes, well, why don't you stop by UAB and get a kidney transplant? And then it hit me. It's like, boom. So I'm sitting here crying like a baby. Everybody in the restaurant are coming up to me asking me, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I told her, this lady's getting ready to give me a kidney. And the whole restaurant, you know, people are cheering and doing all this kind of stuff. And I'm crying like a baby. My wife is trying to pat me down and keep me quiet. And that's how I found out that I was getting a kidney transplant. I had never talked to this lady before about this, and she's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how it happened. Her husband and her made the decision, and he's one of the top orthopedic surgeons here in Birmingham. And they decided that they were going to give me a kidney, and that's how I found out about it.
So when you're going to the transplant, how dangerous a surgery is it? Because from what I've read, the biggest potential risk is probably rejection of the kidney, and that's pretty rare nowadays. So what was the prognosis going into the surgery?
Oh, there's no danger in the surgery other than, you know, taking the anesthesia. You know, that's like in any surgery.
Yeah.
So it's no different than any other surgery. They go in, they remove her kidney, put it in me, and that's it. And you're up walking the next day.
That's amazing.
But I want to tell everybody out there that it's a rare thing. There's 100,000 people out there that are waiting for a kidney, and they'll take a deceased kidney, they'll take a live donor kidney, whatever. And I'm thinking that if everybody looked into giving a kidney in some fashion, either the deceased or the alive, we would knock a hole in that 100,000 people. And I can't understand why people don't want to share this message, even if you can't.
You there, Gary? Gary. I think we lost Gary, Steve.
I think we lost Gary.
Can you hear us, Gary? Well, that's an uncomfortable silence, isn't it? And it shows that he's still on the line. So, all right, we're going to get Gary back on the line here. I don't know what happened. Risley probably pushed a button, and now everything fell apart.
I have no buttons to push. Blame it all on me. Blame some of it on me, but not all of it.
You got me.
All right, you there? Go ahead. We lost you for a little bit there.
I'm still here.
Yep, go ahead. And when you talk about people donating a kidney, what's the dangers for somebody that's donating a kidney? Does it shorten your life or something? Is that, or do people just have the misperception that, you know, it could be dangerous?
They have a misperception because you can live just as long with one kidney, you know, as you normally would, unless you get some kind of disease or something, cancer or something like that. But your life is not interrupted by giving one kidney.
All right, so let's talk about after the kidney transplant. Kind of, do you have to take any precautions after that surgery? I'm sure you do. And what's your lifestyle right now?
My lifestyle is perfect right now because I don't have to get up and go to dialysis 4 hours a week, 4 hours 3 times a week. And if you can imagine being chained to a chair, watching your blood run in and out of your body, wondering if you're going to live, that's a great lifestyle change right there when you get a kidney transplant. You have the freedom to do anything you want to do again. You can travel, you can do whatever. And the only thing is you have to take these anti-rejection medications for the rest of your life. And, you know, I'd rather take a few pills than sit in that chair. So, you know, there's no So let me say it like this. So far, there's been no issues with me.
Yeah.
My body has accepted the kidney. I do blood work every week to make sure that there's nothing going on. The biggest thing you have to worry about is infections, because your immune system is so low that, if you go around a lot of people, like my wife won't let me go to a movie right now. And when I go outside, I have to wear a mask for right now. And that all changed as soon as my immune system starts building back up. But other than that, I don't notice any difference in my normal life before I had dialysis.
All right, Steve.
How long ago did you have the transplant?
January 19th, this past year.
Okay, kind of broke into that. Last year is when you had it?
No, January 19th of this year, so 3 months ago.
Yes, 3 months ago. So it's an amazing thing to see people while you're in the hospital, other people that are experiencing the same type of transplant, and to know where they were a month before that transplant and to see where they are now. You see the difference. Your body changes.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing to be around 4 or 5 people that have just went through the same thing. So we all have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else about the kidney? I mean, it's an incredible story. Congratulations that you got one. I mean,
My thing is this. I think if anybody's out there listening, it is the big thing to take away here, Gary, to me is that it's really not dangerous if you are alive and you're healthy to donate a kidney to somebody.
No, it's not dangerous at all. Like I said, you take the same risk of any other surgery that you would have. And that, when I say risk, I mean going under with anesthesia. So that's the only risk that you really have.
Yeah, and I would think through this whole situation, probably the biggest influence on you had to be your wife, Bobby, who I know just from reading your posts and talking to you, I mean, has been great through this entire process for you.
Well, not only this process, but like I said, I was in the hospital for 3 months with cancer. And she was there while running the largest division of Alabama Power. And what Alabama Power is the power source for the state of Alabama. And her job was vice president of Birmingham Division, which is the division that sends out all of the linemen to fix electric when it's down.
Yeah.
So in the process of her doing that, she was at my bedside after work until the next day. So, when you find, I tell you what they say about women like that. They're a keeper. When you first meet them, somebody says she's a keeper. Well, that's my keeper. She's been with me through all of my major surgeries, through cancer, through I almost lost my leg due to salmonella poisoning in my knee. I mean, you have to understand what it takes for somebody to be a carekeeper for you with all these different ailments and issues. So yeah, she's a big part of my life.
All right, now if somebody wants to donate a kidney or look into it, where would they go?
Well, for me, it would be UAB. And there's a 800 number out there. You just look on their website, and you would contact a transplant coordinator. And basically, what you need to do is just tell them your age, birth date, and your blood type, and they'll take it from there. And I had the great opportunity of finding somebody donating to me that was a perfect blood type and a tissue match, which is not always the case. So this wonderful lady who's in the community, she has a job with the city of Birmingham, and what she's done is something that nobody else has done before. And she started a program with the mayor of Birmingham that will allow workers, city workers, to be compensated for their time off when they donate a kidney. That's amazing. Because, when somebody donates a kidney, they're down for at least 3 or 4 weeks, and they can't work, and they have to recover. And this is something that I hope will start around the country for city employees and any other employees that could get involved in this.
Well, we're just happy that you found a match. Let's go ahead. We'll move on. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. Before we get into the football, I read that you have a program called the Pro Start Academy. And you work hard and mentor a lot of middle school student athletes. You work across the United States with these. Talk a little bit about the Pro Start Academy, how you started it, and what its mission statement is.
Well, I'll tell you how I started it, and then I'll tell you what the program is all about. When I was in high school, I was adopted by Jack Tatum and John Hicks, 2 Ohio State football players. You may remember them.
Yeah.
And they came to my games, and they trained me, and they taught me about what to expect in college and the whole 9 yards. So they took me from a high school unrecruited football player into 10 years in the NFL. And I said that one day I'm going to start a program that matches what they did for me, because I know that's exactly what kids need. They need basic football fundamentals, and they need academic support that will teach them not only how to get in college, but to stay there once they get there. And that's what Pro Start is all about. We've been doing this for 11 years, and we're starting to crank up again for July. And I've been off for the last 2 years because of my illness, but now I'm back, and we are eliminating all fees for the program and giving it to the people of Birmingham for free. So that's what we're doing now.
Steve, anything else?
Well, are we getting into football now?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stands out to me would be you played for some great coaches like Jackie Sherrill, but the one that really stands out to me is Forrest Gregg, who Vince Lombardi called the greatest football player he'd ever coached. You were with the Bengals, 75. I think you were drafted in 75. Paul Brown was the coach there. Then you had Bill Tiger Johnson. You had Homer Rice. And the Bengals, I think people forget, just because of how great the Steelers were, that the Bengals were one of the best teams in football when you got there in 1975. They dropped off 78, 79 with Homer Rice. And a lot of people think that, or thought at the time, the Bengals just needed somebody come in that was a disciplinarian. And what were your thoughts when you found out that Forrest Gregg was going to be the head coach? And then what was your first recollections of meeting him?
Well, I tell you what, the guys, all my teammates, we were together one night, and once we heard the news that Forrest was coming, and, we knew of him from Cleveland and, of course, Green Bay. And everybody was saying what they were going to do, what they weren't going to do, and they're not going to do grass drills, they're not going to do this and that. Well, all of a sudden, that talk came to head one day when Forrest got there. And this, you got to imagine this giant of a man with this deep, booming Texas voice. When he walked in that room, he commanded, without saying, attention. And from that day on, he had our respect, he had our attention, and we knew that, 2, 4, and 12 seasons, somebody's not going to have a job for long. So we better listen to a guy that knows how to win, that's won before, and can teach you how to win. And Coach taught us how to win. Coach taught us how to not be selfish and play for yourself, but play for your team. So my fondest memory of Coach, and excuse me if I get a little emotional, because that was not only my coach, but he was my friend. And my fondest memory was one day I decided to go to lunch at before practice started, which, was no big deal because we all left and went to lunch before. Well, I was the only one that left this day. And Coach decided to move practice up an hour early. So you can imagine my face when I drove into Spinney Field where we practiced at, and I see the whole team on the field. And my God, I had to swallow my tongue because it was slipping down my throat. I was scared to death. So I ran in the locker room in record time and got dressed and got back on the field and pretended like I didn't see him. And I said, well, he's not going to say anything to me right now. He's going to wait till after practice to chew me out. So I was good with that. So I'm down on the floor, on the ground, stretching. And then all of a sudden, I see this big, strong man standing over top of me. I'm laying on the ground, and he's on top of me. And I tell you, he blessed me out up and down. The normal person would have peed all over themselves. And to this day, I don't know why I didn't. This guy scared me to death. And all of a sudden, there's nothing you can do about it. You're on the ground already, and this guy's standing up, 6'6" or whatever he was, standing over top of you, yelling. I said, oh, my God. So all I did was, okay, Coach, whatever, and practice started, and he never said anything about it again. But that has stuck with me since I left Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I would think the thing that he really brought to that team was toughness, because the thing I remember about that 1980 season was the Bengals went 6-10, but you beat the Steelers twice, and you lost a ton of close games. And I think that toughness is something that, as the season went on, started to turn more into productive games and victories heading into 1981. And then toughness had to be a factor in the 1981 AFC Championship game.
Well, Coach taught us, like I said before, he taught us how to win. And when you learn how to win, you're learning all these things that you're talking about. You're learning how to not be selfish. You're learning about how to protect your teammates, how to play the best game you can play, and everything else falls into place after that. Once you learn those things, you become a real football player. Before you were just a football player. Now you're a real football player because you know what it takes to win. You learn you have to condition your body the right way. You have to condition your mind. And you have a train of thought that winning is everything. And winning just doesn't mean you won the game. Winning means you're doing everything right to win a game. And sometimes you're going to fall short, which we did that 6-10 year. But the next year we're in the Super Bowl. So it's a process. It's a process that he taught us. And the process carries on into victory. And that's what he did for us. That's what he did for the city of Cincinnati.
And I think when you talk about that process and learning that process, guys that were great coaches like the Bear Bryants, the Bob Knights, Vince Lombardi, those guys, by teaching that process, turned the people that played for them, most of them into successful people even after the game.
Oh, of course. Of course. You learn how to cultivate relationships that are going to benefit you once you're out of the league. But if you don't know how to do that, you've seen so many players that have nothing to do with people that want you to come out and sign autographs or visit companies and do goodwill things. And then when they get out of the league, they want to go back to these same people and try to develop opportunities. Well, they don't have time for you at that time because you haven't cultivated a relationship with them. And that's all part of the process. Teaching you how to be a better man, teaching you how to be a better football player, and teaching you to respect your teammates. And once you have all those things put together and you start winning, well, you look at Coach Nick Saban right now.
Yeah.
He's got the same process. He's developing. He just doesn't develop these guys without the process. He has to teach them. He has to teach them how to win. He has to teach them how to not get tired, or when you do get tired, you don't act like it. You keep going. And that's what a process truly is.
Yeah, Steve?
Yeah, one of the things, I played for Coach Knight, so kind of the same kind of guy as Greg. What I found was that Knight didn't really, he disciplined us, but he worked hard to teach us to discipline ourselves. And I think that ties into what you said about carrying things through the rest of your life, because he's not going to be around to discipline you, for your entire life. But he worked very hard at teaching us to discipline, our own selves and be self-sufficient and self-reliant and accountability mostly. So it sounds like it's exactly the same thing.
Oh,
I did have a question. Yeah, go ahead. No, I quoted an article. No, let me just crack a joke here. I quoted an article. There was a quote. Is your wife's name Bobby Knight?
Yes.
Okay. It's spelled B-O-B-B-I. I was wondering, does she yell and scream a lot and throw things?
Well, my wife is 5 foot tall, and she ran a whole division of hundreds of linemen, and nobody ever gave her any lip. I had the experience one time of sitting in her office and listen to her bless out somebody. I don't know who it was, so I can't tell you their names right now. But after I heard her bless them out, I started calling her Gangster Shorty because I got this sweet little wife, but when you piss her off, you got a problem. You got a serious problem. So that's why I try not to piss her off.
Yeah, well, we try not to piss our Bobby Knight off either. But he would throw things at us,
and you talk about wives, and I know Forrest Gregg had a great one that had a lot to do with his success. Barbara, I've talked to her a few times on Facebook, Gary, and as you said, you were friends with the man. You just want to tell us what it was like, your relationship with Coach and his wife after your playing career was done?
Oh, yeah. Well, we always keep in touch with one another. And I had the honor and the privilege of attending the Hall of Fame gathering in Canton, Ohio. And the first people that I see are Coach Gregg and his wife. So we sat down. We hadn't seen each other in years. And we sat down and we had breakfast together and we took pictures and the whole 9 yards. But to answer your questions about Miss Gregg, I got to a point in my career in Cincinnati where I wasn't starting anymore. And it really got to me because I'd always been a starter, through high school, through college, through the pros. And I got injury and I was out for a year. And when I came back, Eddie Edwards was the new defensive end. So I was immature, I guess that's the word you could use. I was thinking I was going to get traded. So I didn't show up for the last day because I said, well, they can call me and tell me I've been traded. And all of a sudden, Miss Gregg calls me. And she told me, she says, what are you doing? I said, well, Miss Gregg, I do believe I'm going to be traded. She said, well, who told you that? And I said, well, nobody told me, but the writing was kind of like on the wall. And she said, Forrest, as she called him, hasn't said anything about you being traded. You better get your ass back over here to practice. And I guarantee you ain't going anywhere. Well, I was there. I went back. And this lady, gave me some energy that I'd never had before. And it was like a new change. So now I realized what my role was going to be with Cincinnati now, after being a starter for 6 years or whatever it was. And now it's going to be as a backup. And what Coach taught me how to do is to play the same. No matter how much time you have, you go in there and you do your best. And that's one of the things that he and Miss Gregg taught me. So I did that. I did the same thing, man. I went back. I practiced hard. I played hard. Whatever opportunity I had to play, I let them know that I am still a good player. And that's something that I will never, ever forget that Miss Gregg did for me.
Okay, Greg. Going back into football, just a great story. Talk a little bit about your Super Bowl experience. I mean, it's always good to hear people that got to play in the Super Bowl, the hype, the hoopla, everything about it. What was the whole week or 2 weeks? Sometimes it was 2 weeks. Sometimes it was 1 week like for you.
Well, other than the birth of my children and now my marriage to Bobby, the Super Bowl was one of the greatest things that ever happened. I'll never forget, leading up to the Super Bowl, the Freezer Bowl. And that was, we played San Diego in Cincinnati, and it was a 57 below wind chill factor. And you could look out on the Ohio River, and it was frozen solid. Some people were driving their cars across the actual river. And then you look up in the stands, and you see guys with their shirts off. And as I understand, one of those guys died.
Actually, I think there was a handful of those guys that died that day.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how many of them was, but I know that one guy died for sure.
Yeah.
And from exposure. But anyway, playing that game, you didn't realize that if you won this game, you're going to the Super Bowl because you're so focused on doing your job and pleasing Coach and pleasing the people of Cincinnati that you don't even think about it. You don't think about Super Bowl. You don't think about anything but beating your opponent. And you can't stop. You can't start and stop. You got to do, for 60 minutes, you got to play football to the best of your ability. Well, anyway, when the clock ticked down to 0, we all looked at each other and said, we're going to the Super Bowl. And the enlightenment on everybody's faces, the smiling, the jumping up, the high fives, the whole 9 yards. And then you look over and see this great man, Forrest Gregg, standing there like a statue. And this guy, you realize that this is the reason why you're going to the Super Bowl. This great man, this great friend, this great mentor. And guys, let me tell you, the locker room was a party. I mean, everybody was congratulating one another, the best times. You get out and your family's there, and after you leave the stadium, it's like people in Cincinnati are walking up to you and shaking your hand and thanking you and this and that. It was just a great experience.
Yeah, and unfortunately, every Bengal I talk to that has a Super Bowl story are older than me. And do you think that's ever going to change, Gary? Are we ever going to win a Super Bowl?
Well, if we get a coach that has the abilities that Sam Weiss and Coach Gregg had, of course we will. But, Cincinnati, I played for Cincinnati for 9 years. And the thing that, if I just take a look at the team now, and since I've been watching the team, we're a few players away from Super Bowl status. And those holes are going to have to be plugged. And until that happens, we're going to have, mediocre seasons. That's just my opinion. But you got to have the players. You got to have the right coach to motivate those players and teach them the way to play winning football. Now, I can't speak on any of the guys that are there now. I don't know any of them. I don't know what kind of guys they are. mentally or off the field, or if they play as a team. I don't know any of that. And the only way we're going to find out is when the season starts. But to answer your question, when we get to a Super Bowl, eventually we will. It's taken a lot of time, but
while we're alive, Gary, I'm hoping for while we're alive.
Well, I can't do anything about that. All I can do is hope that this new coach that's coming in is going to be the type of guy that can win, that can coach winning. So we just have to wait, man. We have to have the patience of Job.
Well, we have, I think, and it's been a long time. Let's talk about another one of your teammates that recently passed away in January. Turk Schonert died of a heart attack at the age of 62. And Schonert had a lot to do with that 81 season, the Seattle game to start off the year, down 21-0, where he led you guys to a come-from-behind victory. And the thing that struck me about him was we had Sam Weiss on probably a couple weeks after Turk passed away. And I've talked to a few other Bengals, and for a third-string quarterback, he made a huge impact on his teammates.
Well, I have to agree with you on that. And the thing about Turk, for a quarterback, he was like any other teammate. He hung out. We went out together. We ate together. We drank together. I mean, he was just an all-around guy. And when I found out that he had died, it kind of hit me differently because him and I are kind of close buddies. We always talked, and you don't have that type of relationship, a defensive lineman and a quarterback. I mean, that's a very odd relationship, but we had that. And to hear that this guy's passed away, man, it took me to a different place.
All right. Steve?
Yeah, I wanted to just touch on something else. You obviously had some medical issues most of your career and a little bit before. Is the NFL improving on anything to provide medical support for the veterans or anything like that? Are they getting any better at it, or are you still? I mean, did they support you in any way financially in everything that you went through?
Other than the pension, no. There's a lot of different programs that they have out there, and guys have to do the research to find out what it is. Right now, you remember John Riggins, the running back for the Washington Redskins?
Yeah.
Well, his wife is an attorney, and she and John has started this organization that they're trying to get the NFL to adjust the retired players' pensions. Because compared to what the guys that retire today get, we're getting there's no comparison to those things. And I have to agree with them when they say that, we're the guys that pioneered all this stuff. The guys that came before me, the guys that came before those guys, they are they should qualify for larger pensions. And I'm not saying we should get the equal pension of the active players right now, but I think that there's some adjustments that can be made that would not hurt the NFL in any kind of way. There's enough money out there to upgrade the pensions of the former players, or retired players actually, and why can't we all work together and make that happen? But there's no significant. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask: does the NFL provide? I retired from Pfizer, and I got a benefits package when I retired, a pension, but I got health care too. Pfizer still provides my health care until the day I die.
Well, we don't have that.
You don't have, that's because my health care is all through Pfizer. And I pay a premium, but I get all my drugs for free. Any Pfizer drug I want to get for free, And I have an open network. I don't have to go. I'm not on a HMO. I'm on a PPO, so I can choose any doctor I want. But the NFL's got to look at something like that and say, for all the people that come out of that league and draw a pension or draw retirement, they should get a medical package as well.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100% because now, since my transplant, I'm noticing that there's a lot of former NFL players that are in the same need of a kidney. I just went online the other day, and a guy that just retired like 3 or 4 years ago is in need of a kidney. He's on dialysis right now. So this is another something that's going to pop up in the future for guys that have played the game. I don't know what the cause would be, but I see a lot of different players. Like one of my good friends had played for Green Bay. He lives in Atlanta now, and he has one kidney that's operating at 15%. Now, do you realize that you're born with 2 kidneys and they operate at 100%? What can one kidney at 15% do for you? So I've been teaching him how to market himself to get that kidney because that's the only way that someone in need of a kidney is going to get one. Because if you just go on the list, you're waiting along with 100,000 other people. So if nobody knows that you need that kidney, you have to make sure that you stand out from the crowd. But I agree with you 100%. The NFL needs to do something, and I don't know what their reasoning is for not. But I think John Riggins' wife and the organization that they started of other former players can champion this cause.
Yeah, and hopefully they do. And I think in the end, the NFL doesn't do anything it doesn't want to do unless it's forced to. There's another collective bargaining agreement coming up soon. Is there any way that the current players would be willing to put that in there?
Have you seen the current players do anything like that before?
No.
Okay. So the chances of them doing it now, I mean, I can't blame them, because their life is set up in such a good way now. I mean, just look at the salaries that they're getting, which, I'm not complaining about. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. But when they get a retirement that is as large as theirs is, and then you get the former players that pioneered the game, it would seem like they would get behind any kind of program that would help former players. But it's just not that way. And the reason being, I have no idea. I guess they have a mindset of, I got mine, I'm not worried about anybody else's.
Yeah.
But it would be beneficial for the former players if the active players got involved in some kind of way. I don't know what they could do other than use their voices, but that would help. That would definitely help.
Yeah, and I mean, really started in the early 90s where it basically just kind of let it go under. I know I interviewed a guy who played from the late 50s to 1970, I think 13 years, and when I talked to him, his pension was like $1,200 a month.
Yeah, it's amazing what pensions do for you. And a lot of guys take early retirement, and it shortens your pension. It takes money away from your pension. And a lot of guys don't realize that. And that was the case back in the 80s. And guys were once they started generating their pension, they're saying, well, I thought it was going to be this amount of money. And they said, well, you took this $10,000 back in the day, and that's it. That's what happens when you do that. So, education on pensions and raising pensions is the key right now, for guys. So there are some retired players that haven't started taking their pensions yet. And, I hope that they're educated enough to know exactly what and when you should do certain things.
Yeah. Unfortunately, as I said, I don't think the NFL will do anything unless they're forced to. I know with the concussion settlement, there's been a lot of problems there with getting the players paid too, hasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I love the NFL. I love playing in the NFL and being a part of the NFL. But I just don't understand how people that are making the amounts of compensation or payment that they are, owners and people of this nature, that decision makers is, I guess, the correct word to use, don't see how some guys are suffering, trying to live off of a pension, or guys that have illnesses that can't work, that are in homes and all this kind of stuff. Why not help these guys with the pension? Why not help them with some form of health care? I mean, it can be done. I know it can be done, but like you say, until they're forced to do it, it's not going to happen. It's deny until they die.
Yeah.
And that's the saying that they use. And it's like, well, you got to do what you got to do, but why not help the guys that help you start this league and keep it going?
Yeah, then you got a guy like Merrill Hodge who comes out and says that he doesn't see any connection between CTE and playing football.
Well, I can't speak for Merrill. When he gets a little bit older and starts having these type of issues, I think his mind will change, and hopefully he'll get a grip.
But Steve?
How much time we got? I just going to ask quickly about your thoughts. So, have you followed the draft or anything like that? You got any comments on the draft? Who's going to get drafted first? And is it going to be, defensive linemen or edge rushers, as they're called now? Or are we going to go quarterback?
That got me. One day I was listening to the radio, and they were saying edge rushers. And I'm asking myself, what the hell is an edge rusher?
They mean a defensive end / outside linebacker. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, I got that now, but it's like there's so many good players out there, but I wonder which one of those guys are going to come to the top when it comes time to play in the NFL. You hear a lot of, throughout the years, there's always been guys that have been highly thought of before the draft, and then once the draft happens and they start playing, they kind of fade off into the sunset. So I don't study college football enough to know who's the better players out there. I have to just trust some of these scouts. And when I say some of these scouts, that's exactly what I mean, because the difference in having a successful football team is having a successful scouting staff that can go out and know exactly what kind of player this guy is. And, not all the tests and all that kind of stuff. Who can actually get on a football field and rush a passer? Who can block? Who can tackle? Who can do all these different things? And there has to be a way that you can see that and know that these guys can perform in the NFL. And that's a hard thing to judge. You see a guy that's an all-star in college, and then when he gets to the NFL, he's a bust.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think a lot of that, I think the thing that, and it makes it really hard to scout, is you don't know where a guy is mentally in college. You don't know where he is mentally when he's coming into the NFL or what his mindset is. And when we look at it, we'll see probably 4 quarterbacks drafted in the first round that none of the 4 to me look like they are a can't-miss quarterback. But they'll still be drafted in the first round because everybody's so desperate to get a franchise quarterback. But when you look at it, I mean, the 2 greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen were Joe Montana, who was drafted in the 3rd round, Tom Brady, who was drafted in the sixth round. The Bengals have selected how many first-round NFL quarterbacks that haven't worked, but you got Andy Dalton, who went in the second round. Kenny Anderson was the third round. Boomer Esiason was the second round, and I don't even know if Jeff Blake was drafted. Those four guys were all really good quarterbacks, and the only quarterback out of all the guys the Bengals drafted in the first round that really panned out was Carson Palmer.
Exactly. Well, it's a hit or miss thing. Like you say, somebody wants to say they got the first-round quarterback draft in the draft, and they don't care about anything other than getting that guy because somebody told them a long time ago that this guy is the guy, and we're going to get him, and we're going to help him be successful. Well, some guys you can't help be successful. If they're not successful coming out, some of them don't get it.
And I think when you're talking about quarterbacks, Gary, a lot of it's where they're going to, who the coach is. Will they fit the system to the quarterback, or do they just try to stick the quarterback in the system?
I agree with you. And the other thing that you need to add to that is who has a great offensive line.
Yeah.
If a quarterback is shaky, and then you add a porous offensive line, you're not helping that quarterback whatsoever to be that quarterback that you want him to be. And I think there should be more focus on offensive linemen to protect these quarterbacks.
Well, and look what an offensive lineman can do for a draft or for a team. I mean, Quentin Nelson goes to the Colts last year, and the rest of the line around him all of a sudden becomes really good too, and then you've got a playoff team.
Exactly. And to piggyback on what you just said, when Anthony Munoz was drafted by the Bengals, I'd never heard of Anthony before until I saw this monstrosity walk in the locker room. I said, oh, my God, this guy is going to be something. And what he did was motivate all the other players that were around him, and they wanted to play like Anthony. I trained with Anthony one time, and I had to go lay down in the bleachers before he got halfway through. I said, no, I'm not doing this today. This is just too much. This guy had the most rigorous training schedule that I've ever seen in my life. But he made me a better ball player by showing me exactly what his motivation was. And you got to say to yourself, once you see a guy like that, you don't want to shortchange the team by not following in his footsteps. And that's what happened to us. That's how we ended up going to the Super Bowl, with people like Anthony leading the way.
Yeah, the Anthony Munozes, the Reggie Williams. I mean, there was a lot of guys on those teams that were leaders.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, I'm just talking about the offensive line now, but, we got people like Jim LeClaire, Reggie Williams, Isaac Curtis. Some of those guys were just naturally talented, but they had a little something extra, that extra mile that they would give that lets you know that you can't shortchange the team. When I look back on Coach Gray and the Bengals and the draft choices that they made, it started something. And if it would have continued, where would they be now? Instead of 2 Super Bowls, it might have been 3. So, we just have to wait and see what's going on with this draft. I think the Bengals have learned that it's not going to happen overnight in the draft. They've got to do some other things, and I think that that's what they're looking at now. I can't say this for sure, but I think that they've had enough bust at first-round draft choices that they kind of realize now they got to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, I think the position they pick will tell us a lot, because if all of a sudden you see them draft a quarterback, I think nothing's changed. Because you talked about the offensive line. Andy Dalton was, in 2015 until he got hurt, one of the favorites to be the MVP of the league. And then after that season, He loses a couple wide receivers. The year after that, they lose Whitworth and Zeitler, and everybody's saying Andy sucks. It's not that Andy sucks. It's the people around Andy aren't as good as what they were.
Exactly. And remember, in the first part of this segment that we're doing now, I said that the Bengals have to plug some holes.
Yeah.
What I meant by that is they've got to get players, quality players, in those spots that are weakened for some reason. I don't know whether that's injuries or whatever, but it's going to have to be fixed before they can be a consistent winner.
Yeah, and offensive line and linebacker are the two spots that really stand out to me with that team.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to pay more attention to the Bengals this year than I ever have, and I want to see what goes on in the draft. And it's like any other thing, man. You know, you have to depend on your scouts, because these are the guys that are paid to go out and find these players, to go out and review these players. And, you know, that's where the blame goes. So we'll see.
All right, Gary, we're at about an hour, so Steve is almost ready for his nap time because, you know, he's getting up there in age. Steve, do you have any final questions?
No, it's a great interview. Great talking to you, Gary. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you, guys, and I really appreciate you letting me talk about the kidney donors, because that's something we really need. And everybody, if you can't give a kidney, just share a message that will help other people learn about kidney donation. And I appreciate the time, you guys, today, and I look forward to seeing your show be as successful as it has been, and even better in the future.
All right, Gary, we appreciate it, my friend. And as always, you are always welcome here to talk about whatever you want.
Thanks a lot, man. You guys have a great day.
All right. Thanks a lot, Gary. All right, guys, we talk about the NFL Draft on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern, live on thegurleytruth.com. Myself and Joe Kelly will be on with a Cincinnati Bengals draft preview. I know that Dexter Carter, Matt Andrews-Scavage will be doing a 49er draft preview, and that'll all lead up, of course, to Thursday night, where at 6:45 Eastern we will be live on thegurleytruth.com with myself, Matt Andrews-Scavage, Matt Minnick, former college football coach and a writer for the Cincinnati Jungle. It's not just about the Cincinnati Bengals, though, as we will also have our Indianapolis Colts stud beat reporter Steve Risley, who will be on the show also to talk a little Indianapolis Colts, right? Stud beat reporter Steve Risley?
Yeah, we'll be there.
And
that's what I guess.
Yeah, also Anthony. Go ahead.
I just got to wait and see if there's an episode of the Kardashians on Thursday night.
Well, it doesn't matter because it'll be a repeat if it's during the NFL draft because nobody cares about the Kardashians. But I did see that is it Courtney or the young Kardashian who was dating Ben Simmons. It seems like both of them are cheating on each other now. That's appalling, Steve. Yeah. I would never think that a Kardashian would do something like that.
Never.
But.
Nope.
All righty. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up because my wife just brought me a fish taco. But it's fake fish because, of course, I only eat a plant-based diet. But it tastes just like fish, and it's really good, Steve. I highly recommend it.
I'm not a fish guy.
Me neither, but it's not real fish. And it's really good because my wife now can make vegan tartar sauce. So her plant-based tartar sauce, it tastes just like you get at Frisch's. Okay, it seems like that doesn't interest you at all, so we're going to wrap the show up. I will be back in an hour with Bobby Sheridan from the Sheridan Report to give you the top plays for today, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, so make sure you check us out. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, Gary Burley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.